Good morning. Holy cow, this is going to be an awesome episode of Government Contracting Academy. And this is our free event where Randall Wimmer and I try to provide as much value in the shortest period of time as we possibly can. Why? Because America needs you to start a government contracting company. We need more, right? Like every year, there is less and less. It is a dwindling supply. We need people to come up and start a government contracting academy or government contracting company. Randall, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Randall Wimmer or Randy. Again this week, I haven't changed my name during the past week. But today's topic, I was thinking, and we were just talking about this, Jonathan, about how a lot of people are struggling to get started.
Yes, sir.
How do I get started in federal government contracting? And I could throw out some pointers to you, but they're not going to work. And the reason why I say that is because your situation, your goals, your dreams, the market, they're all different. And I used to get this question a lot. Randy, just tell me how you did it. That's all I need to know is just tell me how you did it and I'll do it and I'll be successful too. And I told him, I said, well, I can't tell you where to drop your line, your fishing line, what kind of bait to use at what fishing location to catch the same fish that I caught. And the reason why is because that fish is now hanging on my wall. Things are different. There are different fish in the water hole now. There's different plants came as they got finicky. They like to eat different bait now. It's like things have changed. So instead of me walking you down to the fishing hole where I caught my fish and using the same exact bait that I used and dropping your hook exactly where I dropped mine to catch the same fish that I caught that's no longer there, I'm what the strategy is you got to teach people how to fish, and that is the strategy, and nobody does that. 99% of all entrepreneurs, they do the same thing. They say, hey, I want that winning strategy. I want that business plan that I can find from the internet where all I got to do is just plug in some information and I am there. And all I got to do is just do it.
It's
I just have to have
easy.
a good business plan. Yeah, I know. It's so easy. So all business plans end up being shelfware. You write 100-page business plan and your whole focus is to finish it. It's not to use it to launch a company. It's just to finish it. I got to do it. I got to have a section on this. Well, geez, I don't know what it is. And I'll just slam some stuff in there and it'll be good enough to sit on my shelf. And it is. It's perfectly great to sit on your shelf. It's great to pull out and impress your friends with. Yeah, this is my 500-page business plan. Or you walk in there looking for venture capital and you throw down a book and you say, boom, this is my business plan, which is exactly what investors do not want to see. They're not going to read that. All business plans, they all have the same stuff. Hey, all I got to do is sell one, get 1% of the China market, and I'm going to become a gazillionaire. Look at that hockey stick growth curve. It's all a cliche now. It really is. So you need to have something that is going to help you create your own to-do list, because it's unique for everybody. If there was one to-do list, if there's one checklist that everybody could follow in order to obtain entrepreneurial riches, don't you think that pathway would be ridiculously well worn? Everybody would be doing it. It would be the most publicized, written artifact in the world, even more so than the Holy Bible, or Harry Potter. I'm telling you, it would be the most publicized checklist in the world, and it's not, because it doesn't exist. Because each situation is different, each person is different, each goal is different, each everything is different. What you have to do is you need a business framework or a business model to help you create the checklist that you need to execute to become successful. And that is the trick, is how do you create a checklist to launch your company? Because launching a company is one of the most intimidating things that you can do. It's overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, how do I even get started? That's what everybody feels, Jonathan. It's just like they see it as some overwhelming things. Like, I don't even know how to get started.
It's scary.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. But once you can take that terrifying I don't know what it is that I'm doing, feeling, and you get that down to tangible, discrete, actionable to-do list, items, then it's doable. All I got to do is just do actions, 1 through 12. Boom. And that's when it becomes doable. And the problem is everybody wants somebody else to give them those action item lists, those to-do list items. And they can't do that. Even if they're well-intentioned, it's not going to work. And the reason why is because everything is different. Every single thing is different. So what worked for me is not going to work for somebody else. But what will work is the business framework to help you create your own personal version of those action item list. There's no free lunch. You can't walk in there and just say, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it and I'll become rich. Come on. If that existed, everybody would be doing it. Everybody would be doing it. It doesn't exist. And that's what everybody is shopping for. And everybody wants that. And I did, I bank my success on other people. Like say, okay, I'll follow you around like a puppy dog. And when we're, then you'll give me work and I'll become successful and I'll figure it out after that. It's like, you got to take ownership of your success, and you got to take ownership of making the decisions of what it's going to take for you to be successful. And the only way that I've learned how to do that is to use a business model or a business framework, something that's iterative, something that that's in your corner. It really is, because when you're launching a company by yourself, man, you're doing it solo. You got no safety net. You got nobody to help you. Even if you got a partner, it's just two of you and you're out there alone and by yourself. And it's like, you need to have something in your corner, like a crutch, that's going to help, help you progress, down the path. And that's what this business model does. It takes you step by step. And I'll tell you, I'll give an example of when I first used a business model. It was way back in the Navy, and I had just graduated from Naval Postgraduate School with a master's degree in operations research. And because operations research is kind of, the thing about operations research is it teaches you how to apply analytic, structured rigor, to solve really complex problems that you think like, hey, I just have to guess. It's got to be a hunch, No, there's ways that you can model it. You can do simulations, you can do optimization. There's tons of things that you can do to make better decisions. And operations research, it was invented basically during World War II when they say, hey, how do we find these submarines? Well, there's an optimal submarine search pattern, depending upon certain things. And you could say you are increasing your likelihood of finding that submarine, giving these parameters, by 52% if you use this search pattern versus that one. So it's like something as complex or simple as, hey, we need to find that submarine. How do we do that? Well, you can actually use math in order to do it. You just got to be really good at it, the math piece. So because I had this degree in operations research, I got stuck becoming the program manager of this program called the Smart Ship Initiative for our ship. There was over 100 frigates, in that ship class when I was in the Navy. I think it was either the largest or the second largest ship class, and the Navy was trying to innovate. Good on the Navy for trying to innovation. Yeah, it's just like, hey, we need to do things better, and that was our charter. And it was as simple as that. You USS Nicholas, you're one of 2 smart ships, and we want you to do things better, and we want you to document. You can do whatever you want. You just got to document what you did, how it worked. And then we'll make a decision whether or not we want to implement it for the rest of the ships. So we were given the charter of do better. It's like, what the hell does that mean?
Would you say that was high level?
Yeah, that was high level. That was about as high level as do good, So and I was floundering because that was my job to kind of lead this effort a little bit. And I didn't know where to start. So I started shopping around for a business model that would help guide me and putting some structure behind this impossible tasking of do better. Like, what the hell does that even mean? So first of all, we had to do is we had to define that. And that's when I found an existing business model and I modified it so it would make better sense to me. And that's how the DADDY framework came up. And DADDY is is an acronym. It's DADDEE, and it stands for dream or desire, analyze, define, develop, execute, and evaluate. And it sounds, pretty simple, pretty useless actually, until you start thinking about it. Like, oh man, what is our desire? What does do good mean? Well, we define do good as increasing ship performance, and then also improving crew morale and quality of living, quality of life. So those were our two desires that we used. And now, to accomplish those, now we had to do an analysis. Well, for example, what are those issues that have the largest impact on crew morale? Oh, wow, standing watch. Because you have to do that in addition to your day job, and then you have to do that around the clock. So, if you're if you're in port and starboard, that means you're either on watch or you're not on watch. You're 6 hours on, 6 hours off, and when you're 6 hours off, you got to do your day job, and then you also got to get sleep, and and you also have to eat and take a shower, maybe, those type of things. And so, like, watch standing. So that was a big area. So how can we reduce the number of watch standers so we can have a larger number of watch sections? So instead of having 2 watch sections where they're on and off, on and off, on and off, maybe we could have 5 watch stations, because we only need to have a fraction of the people we previously needed. So now, doing that analysis, that became a target area for us. And we defined success would be increase the number of watch sections. So instead of being like on and off, on 6, off 6, on 6, off 6, maybe the next step would be on 4, off 8, on 4, off 8. And then maybe it would be, then it'd be on 4, off 12, on 4, off 12. Then it was on 4, off 16, and then it was on 4, off 20. So you're only standing, 4 hours of watch every single day instead of up to 12, which was what was previously happening. So we thought, like, how can we do that? Well, what are the critical? You got to have it. So anyway, we use this iterative process, to actually accomplish these goals. And it's the same thing with launching a company. So I tell people, do not use a business plan, use a business model. And let me share my screen. Let me see if I can actually do that. Boom. Share screen. Let's do it.
Oh, it hasn't populated on my side yet.
Yeah, I'm still trying to window, entire screen. Boom, boom. Yeah, I got to be smart enough to use it properly.
No worries.
So, yeah. So here we are. Again, the DADDY framework is dream, analyze, define, develop, execute, and evaluate. Dream. You got to come up with goals. And everybody thinks like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. No, that's the most important thing. That's what drives everything. That is the most important variable that you can have when you decide what kind of company that you're going to launch. It's, what do you want to achieve with it? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And then the next one is analysis. As an entrepreneur, it boils down to, you need to do a 4 perspective analysis, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And then the next one is define. You got to define what kind of company you want to be. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means what's your horizontal and vertical markets. Your horizontal markets are your services. What services do you want to do? What are your vertical markets? Well, those are your target customers. And the intersections of those are what are called accounts. An account is nothing but a strategy to sell a particular service to a particular customer. And that is paramount when you're doing business development. You're targeting your accounts. Because you're not trying to sell everything to everybody. You'll never sell a single thing if you do that. You got to sell specific things to specific customers, and you got to wrap everything around that. And then what you do is you develop a plan for market penetration and radiation, and you execute it, and then you evaluate how well you're doing. So again, it all comes down to 4 variables of what kind of company you can launch. And it's your personal goals, it's market demand, competition, and capabilities. So the most important is your personal goals. That's where you start. What do you want to achieve? And that is both, based upon personal satisfaction of becoming an entrepreneur and being your own boss, supporting a cause, pursuing a professional passion, improving a work-life balance, or is it financial driven where you don't give a shit what you do? You just got to be doing enough of it to make enough money to achieve a financial goal. So I tell people that if you're lazy in doing this right here, it's going to be completely ineffective, and the foundation that you build the rest of your company upon is going to crumble. Because if you're too ambitious, say, oh, I'll just put down a goal, I'll become a billionaire. Well, that's not going to work. And because if you put that down as your goal to become a billionaire, well, that's a different strategy than what it would become if you just want to become 100 millionaire or a decamillionaire or a millionaire or 100,000aire. It takes different strategies to achieve those
dramatically different, night and day.
Dramatically, yeah. The old saying is if you shoot for the moon and miss, you still land amongst the stars. It doesn't apply if you try to become a billionaire. If you try to become a billionaire and miss, you don't land amongst the millionaires. You land in debtor's prison. you go bankrupt, because of the strategy, and because your goal is what's going to drive your strategies. And this is a very simple. This is a very simple example that I use. If your goal is to be on the other side of the street, your best strategy is to walk. If your goal is to be on the other side of the neighborhood, your best strategy may be ride a bike. If your goal is to be on the other part of town or the city, your best strategy may be to drive a car. If it's to be on the other side of the country, it would be to fly. If you want to be on the other side of the solar system, you want to take a spaceship. Now, just because a spaceship can take you further doesn't mean it's the best strategy for any of your other destinations. In fact, it's the absolute worst one. Getting in a spaceship to go across town is just stupid. You're never going to get there. You just won't, because that strategy, even though it can take you further, is the absolute worst one for every other destination other than going into space. So that's why your personal goals are so important. And the second thing is, your goals are kind of what drive this whole process. And so if you just want a work-life balance and make a few extra bucks, that's going to be a completely different one than some of the other things. I want to say, like, hey, forget about becoming a prime contractor. Be a subcontractor, and where you're like one of 7 people in your company being a subcontractor. So you can charge your prime probably about $250,000 to $300,000 for your labor for that year, and then you're skimming, let's say, $50,000 off. Let's say the other 8 people. So here's $400,000 plus the $300,000 that you're making. That's a way to make $700,000 a year. Hey, that's not bad. You're your own boss. You're doing what you enjoy. You're doing that. You're making $700,000 a year. That's not a bad work-life balance. But you're never going to become a decamillionaire doing that. And the reason why is because after taxes and all this kind of stuff, the amount that you're ever going to be able to pocket, you'll never get to become a decamillionaire and get the beach house and those type of things. So, but it's a lot easier to do what I just said than it is to become a billionaire. For every person who becomes a billionaire, you've got the entire state of New Hampshire worth of people who failed. So you really need to be honest with yourself with respect to your goal. Market demand. At the end of the day, if nobody's buying what you're selling, you're never going to sell any of it. And that's that's a really important thing you gotta understand. You gotta say, hey, are they buying this product? And another important question is are they buying it from a small business? Everybody wants to become, this high-end cybersecurity company, and I'm thinking to myself, like, are you sure that this Department of Defense agency or organization is going to pick a small business that's a startup with one person to do their firewall contract when they have IBM, Palo Alto Networks, GDIT, those type of companies? So you got to be honest with yourself. Is this something that they would be willing to buy from a small business? And if it's too bleeding edge, the answer to that is no, they're not going to. Now, believe it or not, you'd be surprised what they're willing to buy from a small business. One of the contracts that one of my first company had was we were developing the Navy's manpower readiness enterprise. Now I want you to think about that. This enterprise determined whether or not a sailor was eligible, tracked his eligibility and readiness to deploy. It was like phenomenally important and strategic to the Navy. And it was given to my company, well, one of my companies. And previously, I would say 10, 15 years previously, there's probably only about 3 companies that they would have given that award to. But, with time and more mature small business coming along and, programs like the Mentor, Protege program and companies figuring out that ISO certification makes them more mature and lower risk. Next thing you know, you've got this tiny little, small business doing it. And it's a win-win-win for everybody because the government was paying my company and me a hell of a lot less than what they would have paid Palo Alto Networks or GDIT or IBM to do it. The next thing is competition. And when I'm talking about competition is what is your barrier to market competition? How much is it going to cost you to be able to compete? Now, if it's like in the fast food restaurant, industry, well, you're going to be dropping about $1.6 million on average before you can sell your first hamburger. That's $1.6 million is the barrier to market competition. That's what it's going to cost you just to enter the market to compete on average in the fast food industry. You want to avoid those. You want to be extremely knowledgeable of your competitors. And, you want to know how they're being successful. You want to know, how much it costs to be able to compete against them. And you want to benchmark them. You want to learn from their mistakes. What are they doing to be successful? You get no extra credit for originality as an entrepreneur. You really don't. And I know I'm not supposed to say that because entrepreneurs are supposed to be innovative and all this kind of stuff. If you can learn from somebody else's mistakes, why in the hell are you going to make mistakes? Learn from them. And that's what I'm talking about. And then finally, capabilities. What do you enjoy doing? Where do you have relationships? Who do you know? Those type of things. Now, what happens is I made these balls all the same size, these circles. But this right here is the, their relevance and importance. Everybody thinks it's about their capabilities. What is it that I can do? What am I really good at? What am I better at than everybody else? And everybody focuses on their capabilities. Well, here's the reality. Your capabilities, basically, the only value it provides is a little bit of confidence because you're more likely to bid on something and to pursue an opportunity if you feel like you're capable in that area. But that's it. It's really just to help you overcome a mental barrier. That is it. Because you're going to partner when you're bidding as a prime, you're going to be partnering for capabilities. And when you bid on a contract, there's about a 90% probability, 90 to 95%, to be honest with you, that contract that you're bidding on is an ongoing contract. It's just coming up for recompete. That means that when you win that contract, you just beat the incumbent contract company, and you're taking their contract away. Now, the incumbent contractor, they already had that thing fully staffed with their employees. And now at the end of that contract transition period, they're not going to have a job for their employees. And their employees know that. So what do you think all those employees who know exactly what needs to happen on that contract, what do you think that they're going to do? They're going to come running over to you and you're just going to give them an offer letter. So there are people who are already doing the job in the job who want to join your company after you win.
And that's the standard. I mean, that's how it works. Right?
That is it. And now you're skimming off the top. You just have to write a better proposal than they do. That is it. And then you just hire their employees and now you're skimming off the top and making millions. So, but that's the relative size. It's all about your personal goals. And so I kind of wanted to stress that because I wanted to show you what's in the realm of possibility. And I also wanted to show you kind of the the realism of having success in the federal government contracting company. Now, this is a couple years old. This is when my son was getting ready to graduate from college in 2023. And he was considering launching a federal government contracting company. He's since changed his mind, and he wants to get into the InfoSec world, and he's in a graduate program at Carnegie Mellon right now. But when, this is what we were working through. In the daddy framework. So he had to come up with a dream. And his dream is he wanted to be financial independent before he turned 30 years old. Well, what does that really mean? Well, his personal goal translates to having a $10 million portfolio after taxes within 7.5 years of graduating from college. Now, is that doable? Hell yeah, it's doable.
Yeah.
I'll say this. In 2009, I had zero revenue coming in at the end of 2009. In 2016, between 2009 and 2016, when I sold my company, I won nearly $400 million in prime contracts with that company. And I sold it for 8 figures. Now, I left 2009 with zero revenue. So I entered 2010 with zero money coming in my company. And then I sold it in 2016 for, after winning nearly $400 million in prime contracts. That is very doable. And I sold it for 8 figures. And it wasn't just what I sold it for. It was also the fact that, I was making, on average of about $2.4 million a year in profit, leading up to that. So it's very doable. So again, why is this important? Because your personal goals are important because it dictates your strategies. You're not going to get in a spaceship to go across town. In the world of government contracting, there's 2 main strategies. One is an annual income strategy, where you're looking for that low-hanging fruit, so you can make it, so you can win these subcontracts and things, and it kind of like what I was talking about, previously. Hey, you directly support a subcontract, and maybe, you hire a few more employees where you're skimming off the top on that same subcontract, and you can create annual income. And that's a really good strategy if you want to have a good quality of life, meaning like, hey, I want to make $700,000 and I want to be able to be my own boss and kind of control some things.
Like a consistent grind.
Oh yeah. So but again, that's your income goal. But then there's another one, which is, an equity-based goal. That means every single time that you win or a contract, or you get another credential or qualification as a company, or hell, even stay in business, you're creating equity in your company. And that equity in your company, you cash it out, in a liquidity event, which is when you sell your company. And that's how you can really make money. So that's the strategy that my son needed to take, because making, clearing that amount of money, it almost dictated that he had to have an equity based strategy. So, and you would say, yeah, but Randy, that's, like how can you clear $10 million? Let me see if I actually have this thing in. So anyway, so let's go through here this a little bit, because I think I actually do, kind of discuss that. How, yeah. So let's go do that. So just real quickly, what my son did is he used this approach right here, where he needed to find what kind of company he needed to launch. And again, using these 4 perspectives, he needed to find the intersection of them. And using the reality of it is this is what it looks like, using the different size balls that are based upon importance. So he needed to launch a company that was the intersection of these 4 different constraints. So once he did that, he had to figure out, he had an IT background, but he was open to doing other stuff too, because he had a financial goal. So we started looking to see, well, where's, who has, what are the biggest budgets? Well, guess what? These are the biggest budgets. And, this is where they're located. So if you look at this right here, these are NAICS codes. 541330 is engineering services. 541715 is research and development. 541519 is computer related services, those type of things. And you get to see how many contracts, were released during that period of time. And then what you do is you figure out, where did these NAICS codes, who bought most of the contracts or had the most contracts in each one of those. And if you can see, right here, you got Air Force, Army, Defense, Homeland Security, Navy. Those are the real big ones. But that's still too broad. What you really need to do is you need to get that a little bit more, more focused. So now we're looking at the Air Force. So if you go over here and you say, look at the Air Force. Wow, that's a big one. I want to focus on the Air Force. Well, you can't do that. The Air Force is too big. That's just like saying, well, I want to focus on America. You can't do that. It's just too big. You got to narrow down your market so you can target your marketing and your business development. So if you look inside of the Air Force, oh my gosh, look at this. It's one organization that has the lion's share of it, and it's Air Force Material Command. So that is how you find your markets. I would definitely target this one right here. And that is how you do it. So, and then the other place is, the other way to do that is you can do this right here. Like what agencies are not meeting their set aside goals? Where do you have the least amount of competition? If they're struggling to, for example, they can't, if they're failing to meet their service disabled better known small business goals, subcontracting goals, and HHS, that means you've got the least amount of competition there because they can't find enough qualified ones. And that's what you do, is you find agencies that can't seem to find enough of what type of set aside company that you are. And then what you do is you become that. For example, hub zones, that's another good one. Hub zones are dramatically underrepresented across the board. They just can't find enough of it.
Mm-hmm. You just showed a slide that kind of caused an epiphany for me. That the slide with Air Force, the Material Command, the high bar or whatnot. So You're saying what you just described was finding a market with a high volume, right? And that's the big column there. And then a high need, which was the next slide of the set aside, right? So high volume and high need.
No, absolutely. You just hit the nail on the head. That is exactly what you want to do. So, and then the other thing is like, you also want to be in market spaces where, that your probability of being acquired is the greatest. So I just want to see if here it is. So this is my son's dream. He wanted $10 million, and was that doable? Well, this is how doable it was, but he had to do this. He couldn't do it from, using an income strategy. So an income strategy was way too hard because he only had 7.5 years. So in order to have $10 million in the bank in 7.5 years, he needed to have $16.7 million before taxes. So earning $16.7 million in profit over 7.5 years equals an average of $2.2 million per year in profit. Now, let's just say you took a very conservative profit margin assumption of 15%. What that would mean is if you had a 15% profit margin and in order to make $2.2 million, you would have to have $15 million per year in revenue over the entire 7.5 years. And immediately jumping out and saying that you're going to make $15 million in revenue on that first year is really, really, really crazy hard to do. Because the reality of it is, that's just like saying, hey, I'm going to make $1 million in my first year. And, I need to make $29 million in my last year. It's just crazy hard to do that. So that's tough, but it's so much easier. Here, let me show you if you're willing to do a liquidity event. So if you're using an equity strategy, what does that mean? Well, this is the back of the envelope math to show you how much a company is worth and how much you can sell a company for. And it's called the it's called the multiplier method. So what does that mean? Well, that means that when you sell your company, they're going to take your profit, which is also called EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, it's your profit. They'll take your previous year's profit, and what they will do is they will apply a multiplier to it. And that multiplier is determined by just how sexy your contracts are. If they're with, sexy customers doing sexy services, then your multiple is going to be really high. It'll be around a 10 or 11 or 12. If you're doing administrative support services on subcontracts with the Department of Interior, well, now you're going to be hovering around 3 or 4. So let's just use a 7.5% as that middle of the road. So you could make $16.9 million in an acquisition by only having $2.25 million in your last year. So you don't have to worry about making $2.25 million until your absolute last year, the year before you sell. So you got 6.5 years to get up to that $2.25 million in profit. Nice. And then you apply a 7.5 multiple to it. And there you have it. That would be $16.7 million before taxes. And that's not to include, and that doesn't include the profit that you're making in the previous years, whatever tiny amount that would be. So that shows you how doable it is. All you have to do essentially is get to $15 million a year in revenue in your last year at that 7.5 year mark where you're making $2.25 million. So you only have to do what you have, that amount your last year, and you're given 6.5, 7 years to get to it. So that's that's what makes it doable.
Your camera switched off.
Okay.
In that time period, since you were talking about what happens at the very end, learning how to bid on contracts over that time period also increases the probability of achieving those big ending numbers, because you're going to get better. Like every year leading up to those significant last couple of years.
Yeah.
You better, the probability of winning contracts just because you as a contract or a bid writer, proposal writer is getting better, right?
You're improving. And every single contract that you win, your probability of winning the next one gets even greater. Oh, why? Nice. Because now you're using that contract as proven performance. Like, hey, and then you also get a reputation. Like, man, they must have the secret sauce. They must be a really good company because they're winning a lot of contracts.
Oh, good call.
It's momentum. Like I said, it sounds fantastical that my first company won nearly $400 million in prime contracts, in this last 3 years before I sold it, but not really. And the reason why is because these contracts were getting pretty damn big, that we were bidding on. Why were we bidding on really large contracts? Well, because your probability of winning them are so much greater than winning the small ones. You only have like 6 or 7 competitors on a $96 million contract. So, because small businesses, they say, oh, I can't even touch that, because they're too scared of it. So you step up to the plate, you partner really good with partners, and next thing you know, you're one of 6, one of 7 bidders, they're going to win a $96 million contract. Now that's almost $100 million. Now maintain a 20 million, a 20%, 25% profit margin. Shit, you're going to be making $20 to $25 million on that contract alone in profit. So that's the value. So the value of a contract is not only the profit that you're making from it, it's also in the equity it's giving your company. And that the amount of equity is the multiple times that profit. So my first contract, again, it was worth $15 million, and I was making $15 million over 5 years, but they started to accelerate it. They're allowed to execute it faster and give us the money faster to do more work, sooner. So really what we were doing is we were doing $5 million a year for 3 years is what it really turned out to be. And again, out of that, so doing about $5 million a year, and we were managing about, like I said, about a 30+% profit margin. So we were making some serious coin off of that contract. And 30% off of 5 million is what, 1.5 million, a year off of that contract alone. So, it didn't really work out that way. We only made 1 million off the first year, and then by the third year we're making 2.4 because they couldn't give it to it that fast. It was kind of scaled a little bit. So that's how it really was. But the deal is that what was the value of that contract? Well, it wasn't the $5 million in profit. Basically, it was our multiple times, that 5 million. The previous year's EBITDA, which was let's just say on average of 1.5 million. So it was really 5 times 1.5 million in equity value plus the actual profit itself. So it's very doable. I know I got into some crazy math there, but I just wanted to show people that I'm not making these numbers up. So you win a contract, you're getting a lot of equity value from it in your company, in the form of past performance and the value should you decide to sell, plus the profit. Plus you've improved your probability of winning the next one because now you got more proven success, you got a reputation, you got a past performance, you got customer relationships.
Momentum.
Yeah, that's right. You've already got existing partners that you're working with on that contract, that you can leverage for success in different areas. And then plus you're getting better. You're learning what worked and what didn't work. You're getting feedback.
I am personally curious, and I bet you our audience will be too. It would be awesome if you spoke to the difference, the delta in between work-wise. Like how much more work is these white whale of a contracts in comparison to the small little ones where you're probably not going to win. Like I kind of already know the answer, but
you threw me a softball pitch. You threw me a softball pitch because I got a saying, 1 + 1 = 11. I tell people that doing 2 $1 million bids, the amount of work is equal to 1 $11 million bid. Now let me say that again because I was throwing out a lot of numbers here. 1 million, the work that it takes to do a $1 million bid, and then a second $1 million bid is equal to the same amount of work as to do 1 $11 million bid. And now, which one of those are going to pay off the higher dividend? Winning the $11 million one or the 2 $1 million ones. So I tell people that it's all about your pipeline. If you're bidding on the right things and you've got the right strategy for that, you can win. I won that $15 million contract with 0 revenue coming in and having 0 employees, 0 paid employees. I guess I was my own employee, but I was unpaid. Now, I want you to think about that. I won a $15 million contract. So it's all about the strategy that you apply. It's not how big you are. Think about that. I had 0 revenue coming in when I bid on my first, prime contract award.
That's a huge deal.
Worth $15 million. It's like, it's all about the strategy, and most people don't. It just takes you a long time to figure out what that strategy is. But I'm going to tell you what it is. On any contract, 50% of your proposal score is risk. That's how risk averse the government is. When you receive a score for your proposal, it's a handful of colors, called a rating, and it is a technical / risk rating. Risk is literally half of your score. Technical / risk rating. And, if it's a small business set aside, you had better believe that it's more than 50% because the government is terrified of small businesses, terrified of it for good reasons. Why? Because yours truly, my company was about 15 minutes away from not being able to pay my employees. Why? Because I had no infrastructure. I was winging it. I was screwing up my invoices. I wasn't getting paid in a timely manner by the government, and I ran out of money. And I needed to get, some additional funding and money coming in, and it came in 15 minutes before money was supposed to be taken out for payroll. 15 minutes before my employees' payday, before it's pushed to, money was pushed to arrive in their account, is when I received the money. 15 minutes. That's how close I went to going out of business. Because if you don't pay your employees, you're out of business. Done. Period. The government doesn't tolerate that. If you're unable to pay your employees, you were out of business. So I was 15
which is
minutes.
normal startup. Like that's.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
But the deal is you don't want to make that mistake.
Yes, sir.
I made it. Learn from my mistake. Don't trust me. You do not want to learn that mistake on your own. You do not want to learn that lesson. That is a lesson that you want somebody else to learn on your behalf. And and I volunteer my hard-earned lesson to you, so you don't have to go through that. Because I tell people, I say it as a joke, like, my worst day as an entrepreneur was when I was laying under my desk in a fetal position, crying, whimpering. Well, the joke is I was too big to fit under my desk, so I was actually behind it. But everything else I'm not shitting, it was true. I was literally on the ground in a fetal position, whimpering, 15 minutes before I got the money, wired into that account. Before they approved it, they let me know 15 minutes to go, like, hey, we're sending it. You're approved for, for this loan. We're going to give you the money. So I was literally whimpering. That's how close it was to, having everything just fall apart for me. So don't make that mistake yourself. Learn from mine. And that's kind of, let me show one last thing. And then because this is such a powerful slide. Share screen. Boom. Let's do it. Share screen. Entire screen. Boom. Share. Let me see if I can actually figure out where that is.
Awesome.
I hope it's this one right here. Let me see if I can, without scrolling all the way to the top. Oh, here it is. This is what I'm trying to do, and we're trying to do this, in our ventures here together is that this is what's called the Dunning-Kruger curve, and it plots your confidence versus your wisdom. So most people, once they start learning a little bit, they have just unfounded confidence. They say, oh man, this government contracting stuff is easy. There's the small business set aside program they're giving it to you. And what's that?
To the moon.
Oh yeah, totally. It's just like, it's, like, man, I'm definitely doing this. And, contracts, they're just giving out billions of dollars a year, and there's earmarks for small businesses and they can't find enough of them. And hell, I'm one of these small business types. And, so they would come to me when I was, when they were about where this star is, and they say, hey, Randy, we've cracked the code. Can you share us a few things, a few pointers? That's all we need. And so we'll be successful too. And I'm thinking like, it's a little bit more to it than that, but no, we got this. We just meet with for lunch, and we'll figure it out from there. And then maybe we'll treat you out, treat you to happy hour, maybe in a couple of weeks if you have any more follow-up questions, before we become millionaires. And I'd say, sure, I'll help you however I can. But then once I started sharing my wisdom, I say, well, okay, what market spaces are you going to be in? Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, what accounts are you going to have? What do you mean by accounts? Well, that's an intersection between your horizontal and vertical markets. And what are your strategies to sell to that particular agency, that particular service? And they said, well, I don't know. And it's like, well, how good are you at writing proposals? Like, what do you mean writing proposals? It's like, don't we just take money from the government? Like, what do you mean writing a proposal? Like, well, and now so you got to write proposals. And then the next question was, well, how are you even going to come up with your pricing? Well, what do you mean come up with our pricing? We're just going to pick a good price, and so we make lots of money. And I'm thinking like, the government doesn't work that way. You have to validate your pricing. You actually have to do a pricing workup. And, you got to show your costs. You got to show your direct labor. You got to show your fringe, and you got to show this and that. And so the more information that I gave them, the more wisdom that they had. Next thing you know, all I did was put them in the valley of despair. And they just said, the hell with that, man. I'm not going to do federal government contracting. That sucks. I didn't have enough time when I was leading my companies to give them the wisdom that they needed to climb out of that valley of despair until they could have, sustainable success. So I launched Government Contracting Academy way back in 2020, basically to take this section of the curve, which took me literally 8 years to traverse, 8 years before, from when I fell off my peak of Mount Stupid until I was actually, I had enough wisdom so I could have sustainable success. 8 years. And what I've done is I've tried to reduce that to 8 weeks, for Government Contracting Academy folks. So that's That's what I'm trying to do right now. And we're actually having some success doing it. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. But nothing in life, worth achieving is. It really isn't. So it's a lot of hard work, but it's very doable because you don't have to step on the same landmines as everybody else. And that's why I used to not like the coaching industry, because I'm thinking like, oh, man, these people who feel like they got their shit so together that they're going to tell me how to get my act together. It's like, but that's not what coaching is. Coaching is sharing insights to reduce your learning curve. It's learning. Hopefully you get a coach that stepped on a lot of landmines, because you want them to know where the landmines are, so you don't have to step on them. And that is why, coaching, I think there's a 7.5 to 1 return on investment. For every dollar that you spend on a coach, you're getting a $7.50 return on that investment. Think about that. That is amazing return on investment. You do not want to suffer 8 years wandering around trying to figure out how this industry works. Have somebody just dumb it down for you. Just tell you how it works. Do it in 8 weeks. And now you just saved literally 8 years of your life and 8 years of expenses, and costly ones when you're stepping on those landmines. They ain't cheap. And you also, every small business has this type of growth curve: flat, exponential. That's how I went from, literally hardly anything to $400 billion. Once I figured out, nearly $400 million in contract wins. Once you start winning and once you figure it out, it's exponential. Why not start the exponential part as quickly as you can? Why do you want to suffer through this flat 8 years? And that's what coaching does for you. And even though I don't consider myself a coach, I do a lot of, offer a lot of the same services through Government Contracting Academy that a coach would do. And so we're not a coach, we're actually a training program and a mentoring program, which is different than coaching, but we serve the same purpose. So anyway,
like that 8 years, make it shorter, condense it.
And not only do you condense your time, that the opportunity cost associated with that time, but what you're really doing is you're avoiding those landmines, which can be expensive. A single landmine can put you out of business. Like I said, I was 15 minutes away from having a landmine put me out of business. And after spending years upon years trying to have success, I was 15 minutes away from having all of that effort go away. Why? Because I didn't know how to efficiently invoice. I didn't know that was even an issue. Like saying, well, every single invoicing mistake you can make, I made. I could blame it on the government. I could blame it on the government, and the government was, it is their fault. I would say at least 75% of the issues about my invoicing. I went like 7 months without money. I want you to think about what I just said. I was supporting a $15 million contract as a one-person company, initially, and then I started hiring these people, and I was averaging about $85,000 of payroll, and I did that $85,000 every half month. Now think about that, every half month, and then and it was probably month number 7 before I got paid for my first month. This is how bad it was. In 2010, I was building a house, and we paid cash for the lot, for the house, for the lot, and then we were building it, so we had a construction loan. And at the end, when your house is done, you have to pay off the construction loan in full, which basically means you refinance it, and then you get a normal loan. Yeah, but the deal is the company who gave me the construction loan, which 99.999% of the time will refinance it, they weren't going to refinance it. And the reason why is because I was hemorrhaging, $85,000 every 2 weeks, and I had no money coming in. And it's just like, buddy, you're bleeding out. You're not making money. You got no. Why are we going to give you a loan? You're bleeding out $85,000 every 2 weeks. So why? And you got nothing coming in. You haven't shown any income. So during this entire building process, this
color crayon math.
And they wouldn't do that. So all the money that I had spent for that house, for the lot, I was going to lose because they were going to foreclose on my house because I couldn't pay off the construction loan. And so I was going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars of all, my savings in doing that. And whatever savings that I had reserved over for to help me carry me through payrolls, it was woefully inadequate. Because I thought, I'll be operating 1 month in arrears. That's it. I just need, a couple $100,000, boom, done. That's all I need. Well, that couple $100,000 lasted me what 1.5 months, and then I was gone because I wasn't getting paid. When I thought I was going to. It was 7 months later, and it's because I made all these stupid mistakes. And again, 75% of it was the government, but I wasn't smart enough to catch the government from doing stupid things. And that's on me. I could yell at the government, the contracting officer and the contracting officer representatives and all this kind of stuff and the finance people, but it's ultimately me going out of business. It wasn't you got to expect what you expect with a lot of these government people. They're not now I'm going to be brutal. Some of them aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. A lot of them, they don't have the work ethic that you'd want them to have being a public servant. It is what it is. So you got to be that safety net, So,
oh my gosh. Yeah. We are in our last 4 minutes here, and I would like to put a positive spin on what you just said. End it on a happy note. And specifically, this is what popped into my head. So what you just spoke to is why the government is risk averse. I don't like saying common sense. It's common sense. It makes sense that they're risk averse because most startups fail. It is a normal thing, right?
And the startups are less likely to be able to be a safety net for the government people too.
Oh my gosh!
Now, after my first contract stepping on these lines when I was a bigger, more mature company, guess what? I was a better safety net for the government. I was catching their mistakes. Trust me, I wanted to catch every single one of their mistakes when it came to invoicing because I wanted to get paid in a timely manner. I didn't know I had to actually be a safety net for the government on that first one, and that's so. The positive thing is it truly is a partnership where the government should be watching out for you, the small business. And you need to be watching out for the government to make sure that they're not making mistakes also. And I was not very capable of doing that, on behalf of my government partner when I started out, because I lacked the training. I didn't have any mentoring. I didn't have anybody telling me that I needed to do that and how to do it. Oh, God forbid, how do you do it? I didn't have anybody doing that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm still thinking of a positive spin, and I'm a boxing coach, which we never talk about here. But as a boxing coach, I tell my students stuff to prevent them from having to eat punches, and that's what we're talking about here. It happened. You hot washed the situation. What can you learn from that? And then you're prescribing that to other people, right? So that is a situation that. Followers of Government Contracting Academy, students of Government Contracting Academy, mentees of Randall Wimmer will not face, right? It's happened. It doesn't have to happen again. Independently, the probability of it happening is higher than it would be under your tutelage. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the deal. You want to spin this thing with a positive,
Yes, sir.
Let's just look back to my personal situation. In 2009, I generated $200,000 in revenue on a subcontract. So I had a $200,000 subcontract a year. In 2016, from 2009 to 2016, I won nearly $400 million in prime contracts. Now, let's just that's what I closed out at 2009. So I entered 2010 with zero revenue. And I sold it, and my company in 2016 again, for 8 figures, after winning nearly $400 million. So from 2010 to 2016, my family, our entire situation just changed.
Generational wealth.
Changed, in a big time. In fact, I entered 2010 with zero revenue, and I won. That's when I won my very first prime contract. And I left 2010, with $1 million in profit. So I became a millionaire in 2010, entering that year with nothing, zero, no employees, no contracts, no revenue. And I left, as a paper millionaire. When I say, I build, I build the government enough to where I would have gotten, $1 million of profit off of it. They didn't pay me that because, there was delays. I didn't get paid that amount in 2010, but I booked it. So I became a paper millionaire.
Which counts, because we're not talking swimming pools. We're talking dreams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's that. So talking about leaving things on a positive note, how do you go from entering 2010 with zero revenue, zero employees, honestly zero hopes, and then leaving 2010 as a paper millionaire, and then a real millionaire in 2011, and then it kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger between 2013 and 2016. That's when I really exploded, because I kind of figured it out at that point. 2013 was the pivotal year for me, really pivotal. Even though I had that big breakthrough contract in 2010, it was 2013 that I really figured it out. And when I really figured it out, I, that's when I was really cranking it, cranking in the money. So that's that. And then the other positive note is my son's case study, becoming independently wealthy in 7.5 years. That is a damn doable goal. 7.5 years and having $10 million after taxes in your investment portfolio. Done. It's, and in the federal government contracting industry, it all comes down to how bad do you want it. I tell people that having success in the federal government contracting industry, it's a bucket list item. It's just as impressive as being in the Olympics, as being an Olympic sprinter. But the difference is that in order to make it to the Olympics, as a sprinter, you got to be able to beat Usain Bolt. You know what I mean? You got to have some, no kidding, God-given talent. Now, having success in the government contracting industry is like hiking the Appalachian Trail. It's just as an impressive bucket list. If you hike the entire Appalachian Trail, wow, what a life accomplishment that is. It's just as impressive as going to the Olympics. But that just requires grit. If I told you, Jonathan, if you hike the entire Appalachian Trail, if you take the months that it takes to do that, to hike it, I will give you $10 million. Would you do it? Could you do it?
Oh my God.
Is there any doubt that you would do it? See what I mean? So that's what government contracting is. It's a level of effort game once you learn how to do it, because it's a numbers game, and the numbers are large. You got to put in enough bids in order to be able to win one big one, and you're off to the races. You've done it. And it's a numbers game. So that's your positive spin right there. It's like, and that's not even spin, that's a reality. It's a numbers game. And if you're willing to do the numbers, you're willing to grind it out, you will have success.
I'm going to end it. Holy cow. That was perfect. And level of effort. If you want it, you can get it. The government wants you to get it.
Yeah, they need you to get it. Now let's do this full circle. They need you to get it because there's fewer and fewer people who are bidding on this stuff. There's fewer and fewer government contracting companies by the day, and they need good, qualified, low risk small businesses to be successful. Because when they're successful, everybody's successful. The economy, we can do it cheaper. Small businesses can do it cheaper, than big businesses. We just can't. We're not dragging the same overhead expenses that big companies do. So we are inherently cheaper.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Holy cow. This was a great conversation.
Okay.
See you next week.
Yep. Have a good one.